Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's the weekend again. Sorry I haven't posted for a couple weeks. We were in Florida last weekend, just going down for some warm weather. It's been cold and crappy here in Ohio, so we should go down there in January, February, get away for a few days. We did some kayaking and some hiking and swimming with some manatees, and so yeah, it was a good trip. Maybe I'll post a few of the pictures here. If you want to see more of that stuff, let me know. I don't know how much the few of you that watch my channel are really interested in travel stuff, but my wife and I like to travel as much as we can, so we do a fair bit of that, and I take quite a bit of pictures. I'm trying to do better with the video. I'm still not really great with that, but yeah, so anyway, that's what we've been doing. So I'll get back to that, get back to this now that we're back. So if you see behind me, the 2002 has a new neighbor. This is my, I don't know if you can see it. I'll switch the video here in a second. 91 318 IS originally, bright red. I got this a couple years ago. It was a roller when I bought it. The guy had plans to build it up. He had a S52 built for it that he was going to put in it, and then just got busy. So he hadn't done a whole lot with it as far as the chassis goes. It was missing two front fenders when I got it. Whoever had it before him had put some wheels on it with too much offset, and they were all mangled in here. I was lucky enough to find two original matching fenders. The car was pink when I got it, like 3 different shades of pink. It's a pretty clean car. It was mostly rust free. It had a little bit of rust back in the corner back here where they always rust, down here where the battery vent leaks. I cut that out and repaired that. If you go back through my Instagram, there's probably a few pictures of that. But overall, the car is super clean. It's like a 5-footer. It's got some clear coat peel in several spots. The rear cover, I want to repaint because it's pretty pink and the clear keeps peeling, and once you buff it, then it just really doesn't go anywhere from there. So, but anyway, it had a beige interior originally. And I was lucky enough, my buddy that has the 2002 had a parts car that had some black interior pieces. So we swapped those out. I originally had the beige sports seats in this car. That's what it came with. And I bought a leather kit, and I recovered those last winter. And I think they turned out pretty good. They're not perfect, but neither is the rest of the car. So anyway, as far as powertrain goes, I didn't know what I was going to do with this when I got the car, so I just started searching Marketplace, and the next day there was a guy on Marketplace that had a GM 2-liter turbo and a 5-speed out of Solstice. So I did some rough math, and I'm like, I think I can make this work for $1,000 for a turbocharged direct injected engine with a 5-speed manual. I'm like, I don't think I can pass this up. So anyway, this is it. It was a pretty straightforward swap. I needed to, the oil pan did not fit. These engines are popular in Miata swaps, not necessarily the turbocharged engine, but the Ecotec in general, the 2-liter and the 2.4. So there's a guy that makes a sheet metal oil pan front sump for Miatas, so I bought that. That cleared the subframe of the E30 just perfect. The booster did not fit, kind of like the same problem that we have in the 2002. So that's where I got the idea for this Tesla e-booster. So that's what I'm running in this car. It works great once I worked all the kinks out. This car has power steering from Buick Regal. The original Solstice had the power steering down on the bottom, which didn't fit. So yeah, it's using just a basic radiator and a fan out of the Solstice as well. I got cheap off of Rock Auto. I did have a guy reworked the original Solstice harness, stripped it all down, cut it all down, so that I can use, like a standalone system with a small fuse box. It does run on HP tuners. I've had it tuned a couple different times, one locally, one by ZZP. Not super happy with that, but it runs okay. It's been pretty reliable. And yeah, it's a ton of fun. It makes like 260, 280 on a Mustang dyno. It has a medium case diff, like a 325 ratio, I think, limited slip. 325 or 345, I can't remember which. But yeah, man, I love this car. It's one of my favorite cars to drive ever. I know it doesn't look like a whole lot, but it's just so much fun. It's the perfect weight to power, I think, from anything I've ever driven. And it's nice, it's presentable, but it's not so nice that I have to worry about it. And yeah, so I just wanted to share this with you guys. If you have more questions or want to see more on this, let me know. But it's pretty basic, and I really just drive it, put gas in it. It is flex fuel. I can run up to like E40 in it, and so yeah, it's a fun little car. It sounds great. It's got a 3-inch Callus single exhaust with a vibrant muffler on the back of it, and I think it's the perfect amount of noise. So yeah. Anyway, we're gonna get back to the 2002, but I thought I would share this. So I think we're gonna work on the brakes on the 2002. I kind of have an idea what I'm gonna do with that. I got some fittings and a brake. Gosh, I can't talk today. Brake tool, whatever you want to call it. Let's see what we got here. Flaring tool. This is from Summit. I have an old little cheapy one, but I thought this would make my life a lot easier and hopefully cut down on any leaks. And then I got the proportioning valve from Wilwood that we're going to use. This is going to help eliminate some of the T's and extra fittings and whatnot that we'd have to do if we left that out. We're going to need that anyway, since this has got rear drum and that master cylinder on the iBooster is not set up for rear drum, so we're gonna have to do some work there. But anyway, a couple ideas on what we're gonna do for the line. So I got this one kind of tore apart, and I'll show you as we go along with that. So anyway, here we go. You guys ever wish you had another hand? Can't hold several pieces, screw them together all at the same time, but I'm trying to make this bracket. I need to tack it together, but I got too many pieces. And I trimmed this here, and I shouldn't have. So now I need to build it back up with a spacer. I think that'll work. I don't know if we can see any of this. Hopefully, we'll get this together. It'll make more sense. Stupid. My washer's too thick. I'll get back to you here in a minute. This is what I cobbled together out of this bracket that came with the proportioning valve. I just cut it apart, cut. I don't know. There's no point in me trying to explain it. You can kind of tell what's going on. And this is going to go down here. I will pull that bolt out there, mount it to here. Yeah, and so we'll see how that works. I'm going to see if one bolt's sturdy enough. If not, I'll come up with something else. But I've got the rear line. I'm simplifying, doing away with one of each of the front lines, so that will leave me just the 2 lines there. So I'll have one front out, another front out, and then the rear out, and I'll have the 2 coming in off the master cylinder. And then down here, you can kind of see what I got going on here. Still have 2 lines going to the caliper, and then I'll simplify it with this T. I'll just have the 1 line coming in from the out here on the proportioning valve. So anyway, I'll stop rambling and I'll get this mounted. Been testing out this flaring tool. It's pretty slick. The basics are you set up the halves of your brake line. Let's see if I can find a piece. Derek, you should organize better. Anyway, this goes in here like this. You put your top half on, swing this over, lock it in place, thread this down so that just crimps and clamps your line once it's in there. And then when your line's in there, of course it's not going to let me feed it through. Anyway, I'll show you later on, but your line comes through, your op 0 positions it in place, and then you clamp this down. And then depending on what you're doing, like this is what's going into the master cylinder, which is a bubble flare. So when you do the bubble flare, you just do your position 1, your operation 1, force it, and then you're done with that. There's your bubble flare. Got my proportioning valve mounted. Can't remember if I showed you in the last video or not. And then I got 2 lines made. These are both the outlets from the master cylinder to the proportioning valve. So those weren't. I just used some piece of line that I had left over from the line that I pulled off from the passenger side that came around, and that I'm not going to use. Anyway, these were 12 millimeter bubble. You saw me using the flaring tool, and then 3/16 inverted flare into this guy. So yeah, I have the rear line I gotta make, and then the 2 front lines. The 2 front lines have gotta come off because I'll have to cut, reflare with new nuts. The same on the rear. I don't remember how long the rear line is, so I'm hoping there's a junction point somewhere, because they obviously have to come off to use the tool on the workbench. Obviously it'd be ideal to have a hydraulic one that you can use on the car, but it was like 3 times the price of the bench mounted one, so I'll figure it out. But yeah, here we go. Now you can't really see, but I got all the 3 lines for the outs from the proportioning valve hooked up. Got all the lines switched over, fittings flared and whatnot, so that's all done. Initially I thought I was going to try to use the factory reservoir, but it's got 2 outs on the bottom. I don't really need 2 outs. And then these are a little bit smaller, I think, than the out on the reservoir on the bottom of the master cylinder. So instead of trying to adapt that and then have to plug one of these, I think I'm going to use I think I'm going to order a Wilwood, just a small reservoir, pretty much the same as I did on this. They're like 60 bucks, so I think that's worth spending, so that the hoses are the right size, and it's got an out. You drill a little hole for the clutch master. So I think that's what I'm going to do on this one, rather than trying to force this factory reservoir to work. So anyway. This is what I came up with for the front brakes. I'm not super happy with it. These lines were the existing lines off the caliper. I'm trying to utilize those. So if you saw, all I did was make the little line. We got rid of the other hose and the other hard line from inside the engine bay. Like I say, I don't necessarily love this. I may come back through and redo it, but I need to keep moving. So I'm going to make one for the other side. And that'll complete the hard line setup for the car for now. So like I say, I might redo these lines at some point, try to make this a little bit nicer looking. I don't know, maybe hard mount the T here, something. But anyway, it's out of the way. It's not gonna hit anything, so it'll serve its purpose for now. While I was messing with the hydraulics, this is the clutch line. I was gonna flatten this bracket out and make this work. It threads into the clutch cylinder with no problem, but I got to looking, and I don't know how well you can see, but this line is rotted pretty bad. Sorry, I'm sniffling. It's cold out here. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do, instead of ordering a new one, I've got these 2 pieces of brake line left from the front that I didn't use, and these have been replaced at some point pretty recently. So I think I'm going to try to make this work. I think I'm going to cut this off of here, use one of the old nuts, and that'll thread onto here. And then I don't need this much. This was way too much line anyway. So, and then I will maybe see if I can use this piece of line, or if I have to cut it down or use a piece of other line and reflare the one end. I think I'll do that. We'll see how this goes. So this thing works really well, except the dies are so big that to put a fitting on here, if your line is already bent, there's not enough there to make it work. So like, I really like to use this piece of line, but I can't. So I either have to try to straighten this out or start with a new piece of line, which is what I'm going to do, and then bend it. So it just stinks that, like, it's a nice sharp round bend, but I can't reflare it because the dies are too big. So anyway, first world problems, you know. Not exactly the same, but I think this will work. I'll show you under the car. Once I get it bolted up, I'll have to make another line, I think, for the other end as well, but we'll see where this gets us. This will thread into here, and then this is going to thread into the master clutch cylinder. I got the clutch line finished up. You can see I made this hard line here that goes up to, sorry, I know there's a lot of glare. This bracket was the old bracket for the old line. I just made it, cut it down a little bit. Sorry, I know this light, oh, it's the light the sun coming in from the garage. Anyway, there was a tab on the transmission and a hole, and I just trimmed the bracket down and put a bolt through it to hold it in place, and then used the old brake line here, loops around, made that little elbow there to go into the clutch master. So I did reinstall the steering box so that I could make sure that it wasn't going to interfere, and I can't move it back and forth, but yeah, there's plenty of clearance there. It's not touching anything, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that'll work. I still got to make sure. This is the rod for the gas pedal, and there's a lever that I had to order that comes out here, and I think it travels, you know, in an arc this way. So I'm hoping this doesn't get in the way. There's going to be like I say, the lever that comes out, and then it's going to be attached to a cable. So we'll see what that's like when I get that together, but this is going to work for now. So hopefully it doesn't have to move, but my luck says I'll have to move it at least 2 more times. So anyway, I'll leave it for now. Why I'm thinking about it, if anybody knows these cars, was this the original supply line for the fuel system? I think I commented before, it seems like a really stupid place. I haven't traced this where it comes out of the firewall to see where it goes. But then I also, there's a 3/8, like a 3/8 hard fuel line that comes up the driver's side floor. It looks like it runs back to the fuel tank, but it stops like right at the pedal box. So I don't know what that's about, if that was ran after the fact, or if anybody knows on how the fuel line is set up on these. Obviously I'm going to need a supply and a return, so maybe I could use the 3/8 hard line as a supply and possibly use that as a return if it goes back to the tank. It just seems very weird to me that the fuel line would be inside the car. So if anybody knows anything about that, let me know. I think that's going to do it for this weekend. I know it doesn't seem like I probably got a lot done, but I got some other stuff I want to work on. I did off most of the brakes, steering box reinstall, clutch slave cylinder. I still got obviously quite a bit to do. I did order a new center link. If you remember, that one got kind of mushed up when we were trying to remove it. I got a center bearing ordered. I haven't done anything with the AC. I did order a radiator sensor. I figured out the other day when I had the supercharger sitting on here for some pictures that this radiator hose does not fit. The supercharger pulley sits like right here. So I'm going to have to reevaluate that. Yeah, I'm pretty close to maybe figuring out what we're going to do with wiring on the car. I'm thinking about ordering most of the parts from Classic Daily. I think he puts together a kit for the wiring that would make my life probably a lot easier, so I think I'm going to do that rather than try to figure it all out. I don't know the 2002 or the E36 wiring very well, so I might just buy his kit to make my life a lot easier and get this car going sooner rather than later. So anyway, what do I got left? I did some spray paint on the bracket for the Wilwood unit, so I'll get that bolted back in, and I think that can go back in the car maybe for the final time. I gotta reinstall this, put all the bolts in. I did get the wiring for the eye booster. I know it looks like a lot, but really it's only 4 wires. 12 constant, 12 accessory, ground, and maybe one other. I can't remember. But anyway, I'm going to spend a little bit of time cleaning up the garage. It's a bit of a mess. The floor is disgusting. I got some other stuff I want to work on. The temperature gauge in E30. I had a wire get cut on the temperature gauge at some point, or got burnt. And for some reason, the gauge now is super erratic. Sorry, I'm trying not to make you sick. That's a factory E30 gauge for the cluster, and it always worked, but now all of a sudden, like, the gauge does boop, 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 boop. And all it is a ground and then the sensor wire. This is the wire that got burnt, so I may cut it back. I redid the ground the other day, and that seemed to fix it until I drove it, and then it was all over the place. So I'm hoping I didn't ruin the gauge in the cluster. I'm assuming it just reads off resistance, so something in there is causing it to go haywire. So I might mess with that this afternoon. Thinking about putting the summer tires back on my wife's car. The winter tires are shot, and they're super noisy, and I think we're about out of crappy weather here in Ohio, so it's all season TWSs anyway, so they'd be fine if we got a little bit of crappy weather in the next couple weeks. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back on it here pretty soon. And if you want to see any of the other content on the other cars, just let me know and I'll put something together. Thanks.